This video is going to be about clamping in the KME clamp. So got all different style of blades here, all different kind of grinds. Start out with something that would be an easy one. I'm sure everybody likes these, something with a lot of flat in it. Very easy to get in the clamp. And when you tighten it down, you have no wiggle or anything like that. I'll take something like a small, thin, traditional. You can also easily clamp this. When it's tightened down, you have no wiggle. Depending on how the tip's ground, you may have to turn it in or out a little bit. Then I'll go to something that's a lot more common, a full flat grind. Now the good thing about this is when you look at the side of the clamp, the way the rubber gets thicker in here toward the back can compensate for the different thickness going down the blade as the distal taper gets thinner toward the tip. Me personally, I always load with my right hand, pinch with my left, tighten down. I then switch hands, pinch on this side with my right hand, and further tighten down. So I know how easy it's going to be to see. You can see that the rubber has collapsed a little bit, like it's supposed to, around the spine of the knife. A little bit less on this side. But what we have, as you can see, nice tight clamp blade. You don't have to worry about it moving. Now as far as positioning goes, I've sharpened enough different knives on the KME. The Rat 1 and 2, for example, with the distal taper combined with the grind, while you do get a hair thicker edge up at the tip, this is not one that you have to position in the clamp in this fashion at all. You can clamp it just like this, and it will sharpen your tip, as you can see, just fine. Same with the Cut Jack and the Cut Jack Mini. Both the same exact way. Now to take these out, when the clamp's facing me, I always make sure the handle is on my left side. I go ahead and pinch it like this. Turn, and there you go. So we'll go up to a little bit more, something that has a little bit more moderate, or more aggressive, I should say, distal taper, like the Para 3 and PM2. Now in this particular instance, on something like this with a short blade, your spine's going to be pretty close to the back here by the hole, and your spine's going to be really close to the end of the clamp up here in the front. Same thing, you go ahead and tighten it down. I have no blade wiggle in the clamp whatsoever. And even though the heel and the tip are not perfectly parallel, this is how I always clamp a Para 3 or PM2, and you get the same size bevel all the way across from heel to tip. Another thing, don't worry about how tight you tighten this down. I do have trouble loosening it sometimes. I've never seen anyone break one of these tri-way nuts, even being plastic. Just never seen it happen. I know I've cranked on this thing so tight that I almost couldn't get it undone, and it's still perfectly fine. Something like the Manix 2, same thing. As you can see, very close to the back here, not even in the front. Our edge is pretty much parallel and even side to side. You can see it compresses the rubber. And on this side, we are not even in this channel here. However, you look at your gaps, and we have about the same amount on both sides. Once again, no blade wiggle. Now I'll get to some things like this. So not only is this a compound grind, it also has a big swedge at the top. Not a lot of flat area to work with. Same thing applies though. I'm more concerned about getting my side to side centered. I do have some overhang into the primary grind there with the flat totally up inside the clamp here. And now we have a solid clamp on the blade, no wiggle. Something like the Link, that is a whole lot like the Deca Warncliffe. Stick it in, center my blade. And same thing, solid clamp. Part of it is the way the clamp's designed. This extra channel back here assists you. Same theory here. You have a swedge, primary grind, swedge coming together, very small flat spot, same thing. This would be exactly how I would clamp this particular knife right here. And this one I've found, I've sharpened it enough times now, I'm about to test it. Even the way the tip is here, this will let you keep the same angle on the front grind and the main secondary bevel back here. This was clamped in one position, no change in the angle of the stone. something like this with a smaller flat, this would be exactly how I clamp the freak. Same thing, when you tighten it down, you have no movement, because not only do you get compression from the rubber back here in the bigger area, you also get clamping down onto the grind there on the primary grind. Then we have Tonto Blades. Now these, you'd never know until you sharpen it. This particular one, I do clamp totally on the flat, about like this right here. That allows me to keep the same angle on the main bevel and the leading bevel. However, something like my Hogue that I use all the time, the EXA01, that has about a 5 or so degree difference between the forward bevel and the main bevel. So you will have to do one and then go to the other. And last, you have something like this Tucson. While this isn't terribly thick stock, the distal taper is more on the extreme side, as well as how thin this grind is. I don't remember exactly what this is, but you can see by how thin the bevel is. I want to say this is around 14 thousandths or so behind the edge. This one does pose a challenge in the clamp. Even with all the stuff I've sharpened, it does take a little bit of time for me to figure out exactly how to put this one in the clamp. What you can do, pinch real tight with your fingers and try to wiggle the blade. Now, I've done this one enough times that I know where it goes, but that would be what you have to do with something like this. So then you end up with this, a solid clamp. And yes, as you can see, in order to clamp this nice and tight, I do have a little bit more edge coming out this side than I do on this side over here. As you can see though, the way the grind is, that really doesn't affect the bevel. So that gives you an idea how I clamp everything. Well, I really clamp this one tight. That's all the different ways I clamp things in here. Now, you will get some traditionals that you're not going to be able to clamp in the standard jaws. I never picked up the penknife jaws. I don't have enough traditionals with that small of blades. And the ones I do have, I just go ahead and freehand. I don't know if they would be something good to pick up or not. I just personally don't have much of a use for them. This works great for me with all these different type of blades. And I want to say about the biggest fixed blade that I do in here that I have is about a 5.5 inch blade. I do know I have done some kitchen knives up to about 8 inches or so, and it's okay. But when I get into kitchen knife stuff, I do most of that freehand as well. you guys have any questions, put them down below. Get my email out of the comment section, or I'm sorry, the description section. Be glad to help you out any further than this. If you need some more help, that's all I have for this one. As always, I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.